They laughed when I walked into the compound. Not just a quiet giggle, but the kind of laughter that pricks your skin, that swells from a place of judgment wrapped in perfume and pride. The chairs were white and gold. The canopies stretched wide like wings of wealth. And the guests, rich, regal, polished, watched me like I was a glitch in their perfect picture. I didn't blame them. Not really. I was the girl in rubber shoes. Not the fancy kind. Just plain, faded village market rubber. The kind you wear to fetch water or chase goats. My dress was ironed but old. My scarf was neat but worn thin from years of sun and struggle. Still, I walked in. Alone. Past the gate men who almost turned me back. Past the camera crew who paused, thinking I must be staff. Past the aunties with lace wrappers and loud mouths. Because I had to see him. The groom. I had seen his face only in newspapers and on TV. Odogwu of Lagos Tech, they called him. A self-made billionaire who was once an orphan, so they thought. Built an empire from scratch, married into money, shining like a prince with no past. But he had a past. He had me. I stood by the tree near the edge of the compound. No one offered me a seat. No one asked if I had eaten. A child pointed at my shoes and laughed. His mother pulled him close, not to scold, but to whisper something and giggle behind her gelly. I smiled gently and turned away. They didn't know. They didn't know that I wasn't just a girl from the village. That I wasn't here to beg for food or snap pictures like a curious stranger. I came because I had a reason, a memory, a scar, a truth, and a photo in my pocket, creased, faded, but still clear. 2 children, standing in front of a mud house. One with a slingshot, the other holding his hand. I had whispered his name in sleep more times than I could count. Searched faces in crowds for the boy who vanished the night the fire took everything. They said he died. But I knew better. I felt it. That day when I saw his engagement announcement in the newspaper, I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just packed a small nylon bag, wore the cleanest clothes I had, and boarded a night bus. Now here I was, at his wedding, wearing rubber shoes and carrying the weight of a story no one believed. Until the music stopped. Until someone tapped the mic. Until the billionaire groom stepped into the light and scanned the crowd. And then his eyes landed on me. And everything froze. His eyes didn't just pass over me. They stopped. For one long second, the billionaire groom, dressed in custom agbada, dripping royalty, glowing with success, looked straight at me like he'd seen a ghost in broad daylight. Then something in his expression cracked. His confident smile flickered. His hand, holding the mic, trembled just slightly. But no one else noticed. The MC was still cracking jokes. The bridesmaids were still adjusting their makeup. His fiancée stood beside him, tall and flawless in shimmering gold lace, waving to the crowd like a beauty queen crowned twice. Only he and I knew something had shifted. The music started again, loud and triumphant, but his eyes never left mine. I looked down quickly, pretending to fix the scarf on my head. My heart slammed against my ribs. I hadn't expected this. I had prepared myself for disappointment, for him to be too changed, too distant, too rich to see me. I was ready for him to ignore me completely. But not this. Not recognition. I took a small step back into the shadows, near the caterer's tent, where the smell of jollof rice and fried beef mingled with expensive perfume. A woman carrying a cooler bumped into me and hissed, "Move, a bag!" I whispered sorry and stepped aside. I could still feel his stare burning through the crowd. And then, the mic screeched slightly. He raised his hand, motioning for the music to stop. Confused murmurs rippled through the guests. "Is everything okay?" the MC asked, half laughing, trying to keep the energy light. But the groom wasn't smiling anymore. He walked off the raised platform slowly, like he wasn't even sure what he was doing. His best man followed behind in confusion. The bride turned, her smile stiffening, watching him descend into the crowd, stepping between chairs, ignoring greetings. And still he looked at me. One of the ushers noticed. "Oga, you dey find someone?" she asked him nervously. He didn't reply. By now, people had started to turn their heads. Some thought maybe he needed air. Others thought he was headed to greet a VIP guest. A few already started filming with their phones, hoping for a moment worth sharing. And then, he stopped, right in front of me. The world blurred into silence. All the laughter, all the mocking, all the glances at my rubber shoes, gone. He stared at me for what felt like forever. And finally, in a voice low and shaky, he asked just 3 words. "Is it you?" Because I didn't answer him. I pulled out the photo and watched his world collapse right in front of his bride. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. Instead, I reached into the side of my wrapper and pulled out the old photo, the one I had carried for over 16 years like it was a second heart. 2 children, one holding a slingshot, one holding his hand. The edges were torn, the ink faded, but the truth in it remained untouched. I held it out silently. His hand hovered, trembling slightly before he took it. And when he looked down at that picture, something inside him shattered. I saw it in his eyes. Recognition, grief, regret, then tears. Real ones. Not the kind you blink back. The kind that fall before you even realize they're there. "My God," he whispered, his voice barely audible. He stared at the photo like he had just found a piece of his soul he thought had burned away long ago. Amaka, that name. He said it like a prayer, a memory, a ghost that finally spoke back. The guests stared in stunned silence. Some whispered, some filmed, others just blinked, unsure if they were watching drama or destiny unfold. The bride took a cautious step forward, her heels clicking sharply against the tiled walkway. "Babe," she said, her voice sharp but shaking. "Who is this? What's going on?" But he didn't answer her. He took a deep breath and looked back at me, like someone seeing a dream they were afraid to wake up from. "You're alive," he said. I nodded slowly. "You left?" I replied, my voice soft. "But I never stopped looking." Gasped. More whispers. The band had stopped pretending to play. The wedding was no longer a celebration. It was a question mark hanging in the air. I wanted to hug him. I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to go back in time and shake the world for letting us get torn apart. But I just stood there, quiet, while he took it all in. "I was told you died," he said, his voice cracking. "The fire, the confusion, they pulled me away. I searched for months after, but the orphanage. They said no one else survived." I swallowed hard. They were wrong. He looked at me like he had failed something sacred. And maybe he had. The bride stepped between us now, her voice rising. "Can someone explain what's happening?" He turned to her slowly. And that's when he said it. Loud, clear, final. "She's my sister." The bride dropped her bouquet. The mother-in-law screamed. And I was about to hear a secret that had been buried deeper than the fire that tore us apart. The bouquet hit the floor with a soft thud. The bride's mouth fell open, but no words came out. Her makeup, flawless just moments ago, was now cracking under the weight of confusion and disbelief. Someone in the crowd muttered, "Sister? What kind of sister?" Another whispered, "Nah movie we day watch?" But my brother, yes, my brother, just stood frozen, still holding the photo, his mind unraveling everything he had believed for years. That's when she stepped forward. His mother. I hadn't seen her since the fire. She looked older, her skin lighter with expensive creams, her lace wrapper grand like a queen's curtain. But her eyes, those hadn't changed. Sharp, cold, calculating. "What are you doing?" she hissed at him. "This is your wedding. That girl," she pointed at me like I was dirt on her shoe, "is a fraud." He turned slowly to her, voice calm but sharp. "She's not a fraud. She's my sister. She's a stranger," his mother snapped. "Brought here to ruin everything you've worked for. This is manipulation." My hands clenched, but I stayed still. Then, with trembling fingers, he handed her the photo. She looked at it, and for the first time that day, the confident woman with her head raised high, lowered her eyes. She didn't speak. She didn't deny it. She just looked, cornered. I took a step forward. "You remember me, don't you?" Her lips trembled. "You were just a child. I thought the fire. You let them separate us, I said quietly. You let me grow up thinking I was alone. She opened her mouth, then closed it. The silence was louder than any scream. And then he turned to her again. What else didn't you tell me? He asked. Why didn't anyone ever try to find her? Her voice broke now. Because if she came back, you wouldn't be the only heir. The words dropped like a thunderclap. Someone gasped audibly. His bride looked like the ground had shifted under her feet. What? He said slowly. His mother clasped her hands together. Your father left the estate to both of you, half and half, but she was gone, lost, and the will only activates if both heirs are confirmed alive. I stood there in my rubber shoes. No makeup, no jewelry, just truth. And suddenly, everything around me bent. The whispers, the sneers, the shame. Now I wasn't the poor village girl. I was the co-heir to a billionaire legacy. The bride turned to me, eyes full of fury. If you think you're getting anything, she spat, you'll have to fight me for it. And I smiled, because I already had. The bride's words came sharp as broken glass. If you think you're getting anything, she said, stepping toward me with trembling fury, you'll have to fight me for it. I didn't flinch. I didn't raise my voice. I simply looked at her, her gown glittering in the sunlight, her nails freshly done, her whole world shaking under heels too high for truth to balance on. And then I said calmly, I've been fighting my whole life. Her face twitched. The crowd that once ignored me had formed a wide circle now, as if the wedding had turned into a courtroom, and they were waiting for the verdict. The groom, my brother, stepped between us. Enough, he said, his voice low but full of command. This day was never supposed to become this, but maybe it needed to. The bride scoffed. So what now? You hand her half of everything? Just like that? She's not just anyone, he replied. She's my blood. She was stolen from me, and from my father's legacy. His mother shifted uneasily behind him, but she said nothing. Her silence now carried weight. It was her guilt speaking louder than words. And then he turned to me. Come with me, he said. I hesitated. I looked down at my shoes. Rubber, cracked, coated in the red dust of the only life I had ever known. But I followed. He walked me to the front, to the center stage where he was meant to give his wedding speech. Someone offered to clean the mic. Another reached to adjust the camera. He didn't need any of it. He held up the photo to the crowd. This, he said, is not just a girl from nowhere. This is Amaka, my sister, the other heir to our father's estate. The child who survived what I thought none of us could. The one who had every reason to grow bitter, but chose to grow strong instead. Silence. Then scattered applause. Then more. Louder. Rising like a wave. People who laughed at my shoes were now nodding. Some wiping tears. Others already live-streaming the moment. He turned back to me and said, I don't care what anyone thinks. You belong here. Not because of your bloodline. Not because of the will. But because you never stopped standing. And in that moment, I realized something. I didn't need wealth to be worthy. I didn't need their lace or their applause. I had walked into their world with nothing but the truth. And now, I had reclaimed everything they thought I didn't deserve. That night, I didn't sleep in a mud house. I signed a deed, walked through marble floors, and in the morning, I showed up at the estate wearing the same shoes they mocked. But this time, everyone stood when I walked in. The night was a blur of questions, flashes, and shifting glances. I didn't eat much. I didn't say much either. But I signed the documents, the deed, the trust. The estate claim they thought I'd never live long enough or rise high enough to touch. They wanted silence. I gave them stillness, but not weakness. I left the wedding that night not in a car or with a crowd, but with dignity. No grand goodbye, no revenge speech, just peace. The kind that doesn't ask permission to exist. And the next morning, I came back to the family house, the Zuma estate, a compound so large it had wings named after ancestors. Marble floors so polished you could see your shame in them. Men at the gate in suits, gardeners, drivers, staff I didn't recognize, but who all turned when they saw me walking through the gate. Same scarf, same dress, same rubber shoes. They stared, at first confused, then slowly, respectfully. No one laughed. No one dared. The butler opened the tall double doors like I was royalty returning from exile. "Welcome home, Ma," he said quietly, eyes lowered. I walked in, room after room, the chandelier in the foyer, the golden frames of ancestors I had never met, a portrait of my father, bigger than life, staring down like he'd been waiting. I stood in front of it and whispered, "I made it." Behind me, footsteps. My brother. He didn't say anything. He just stood beside me. And somehow, for the first time since the fire, I didn't feel alone anymore. He reached into his pocket and handed me something. New, clean, a key to my own wing of the house. "My sister deserves more than a title," he said. "She deserves a throne of her own." Later that day, the press came, some to ask questions, others just to take photos of the girl in rubber shoes, now walking marble halls. But I didn't pose. I didn't perform. I just stood tall, quiet, whole. One reporter asked, "Why did you wear those shoes again today?" I smiled softly and said, "Because I don't need to change who I am just to walk into a palace." And that was the quote that made headlines. The rubber shoes that walked into royalty. It trended for days. But I didn't care, because I hadn't come for fame. I came for identity, for every child who's ever been laughed at, for every woman told to shrink, for every poor soul called worthless. I came for me, and I stayed. They once laughed at my shoes. Now they stand when I enter the room. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell. Thank you. We hope to see you in our next video.